This weekend, we mark the very sad death of Queen Elizabeth II. It's not easy being the United Kingdom's monarch in the modern world, but she did the job so superlatively well that she will be a very hard act to follow. All of her duties now fall to her son, King Charles III, including the post of Defender of the Faith, which means heading the Anglican State Church, which was set up by Henry VIII in 1534. Charles has previously expressed the opinion that he would like to be thought of as defender of all the faiths. The future will tell. Now for the rest of the news. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and welcome to Global Atheist News, dateline 10th of September 2022. This is our weekly report on how religion has impacted humanity over the last 7 days. This week's headlines. 7 women were arrested for calling for female leadership at the Vatican. Yeshiva University in New York City asked the Supreme Court to block a court order that would require it to immediately recognize an LGBTQ pride club. A Saudi woman was jailed for 45 years for social media posts. Security men in Saudi Arabia assaulted orphan girls who were on hunger strike. A North Carolina school baptized more than 100 pupils without their parents' permission. A string of Muslim murders leaves the New Mexico community on edge. Britney Spears says, "I don't believe in God anymore." Saudi Arabia and GCC warn Netflix over violating Islamic values. William Patterson was jailed for sexually abusing children over a 13-year period. Teacher Enoch Burke is to remain in jail for breaching an injunction. For a small Chicago church, closing down was an act of faith. The earth goddess statue erected in a Cornish town sparks an unholy row with church leaders. 7 women stood outside the gates of the Vatican dressed in cardinal red, each carrying a scarlet parasol emblazoned with a phrase of female empowerment. Ordain women. Reform means women. It's raining men. You've got to read that. It's REIGNING, raining. They were there to greet the 197 cardinals arriving on morning of August the 29th for a highly anticipated discussion with the Pope and to protest the absence of women in the meeting. As the men in red filed past, the women in red handed them pamphlets and urged them to remember your sisters who remain outside. When journalists began interviewing the group and taking photos of the cardinals with the open parasols visible behind them, a police car flashed its lights at the women, said Miriam Duignan, a spokesperson for the Wingards Institute for Catholic Research and Women's Ordination Worldwide. Duignan, who was carrying a parasol reading "Sexism is a cardinal sin," said she was asked to leave as she was being interviewed. The police officers began moving the 7 women towards St. Peter's colonnade and placed a barricade around them using wooden panels. 15 minutes later, the women were taken to a nearby police station where they were held for 3 hours. Yeshiva University in New York City filed an emergency request asking the Supreme Court to block a court order that would require it to immediately recognize an LGBTQ pride club. Yeshiva and its president are now being ordered to violate their religious beliefs or face contempt, the emergency request said. That ruling is an unprecedented intrusion into Yeshiva's religious beliefs and the religious formation of its students in the Jewish faith. A Saudi woman has been sentenced to 45 years in prison for her social media posts in the second case of its kind this month. A terrorism court convicted Noura bint Saeed al-Qahtani of using the internet to tear the social fabric and violating public order by using social media, rights group Dawn reported. Little is known about her other than that she criticized Saudi leaders. Another woman was jailed for 34 years over her Twitter activity on the 9th of August. Abdullah Alaoud, director of the research for the Gulf region at Dawn, the rights group, told the BBC's NewsHour program that the US-based group had learned of Qahtani's case only after being passed court documents by a judicial source, and that it was continuing to investigate. Nothing in the court documents pertained to any violence or criminal activity, said Abdullah. The charges against her are really broad. They are using the counter-terrorism law and the anti-cybercrime law. That can criminalize any posting that is even remotely critical of the government. He added, the Saudi government is sending a strong signal to the West that it doesn't care about human rights. Security men in Saudi Arabia stormed an orphanage and assaulted orphan girls who were on hunger strike. Saudis formed a committee to find the person who leaked this video that I'm about to show, but nothing was done to address the brutality of the orphan girls. See the video. A North Carolina school baptized more than 100 students without asking permission from their parents. When parents learned that their children had been baptized at the Northwood Temple Academy, they were upset. My daughter called me from the school and says, "Mama, can you bring me some dry clothes? I got baptized today," one parent told the Observer. I said, "What?" The parent told the Observer that she learned her 11-year-old daughter had been baptized while she was at work on a conference call. Northwood principal Renee McClam said she didn't intend for the event to be a secret from parents. "Truly, the Lord began to move this morning, and we were so excited about what the Lord was doing. Several students had given their lives to the Lord during Spiritual Emphasis Week, and they were scheduled to be baptized this morning," she said. "But the Spirit of the Lord moved, and the invitation to accept the Lord and be baptized was given, and the students just began to respond to the presence of the Lord. Multiple parents complained to MacLam. Recently, a horrific serial killing of 4 Muslim men of South Asian origin in Albuquerque, New Mexico, has sparked great fear in the Islamic community of the United States. See this video.
String of Muslim murders leaves New Mexico community on edge. Recently, the horrific serial killings of four Muslim men of South Asian origin in Albuquerque, New Mexico, has sparked great fear in the Islamic community of the United States. The victims include Mohammed Zahir Ahmadi, 62, from Afghanistan, Mohammed Afzal Hussain, 27, Naeem Hussain, 25, and Aftab Hussain, 41, all from Pakistan. The Turkish government condemned the killings and demanded that the perpetrators of these murders, quote, be found immediately and brought to justice. President Joe Biden tweeted that he is, quote, angered and saddened by the horrific killings of 4 Muslim men in Albuquerque. On August 8th, the brutal murders of the 4 men were linked to Mohammed Syed, the primary suspect in at least 2 of the killings. Syed is a refugee who moved from Afghanistan to the United States within the past 10 years and has denied his guilt. It was a tip from within the Albuquerque Muslim community that ultimately led the police to identify Syed. It has also been reported that Syed, a Sunni Muslim, was upset about his daughter's marriage to a Shia Muslim. 2 of the victims were friends of his daughter and Shia Muslims. Bullet casings found in Syed's car matched the caliber of a weapon used to kill Aftab Hussain and Mohammed Afzal Hussain.
Britney Spears has released a recording which starts with her saying, I can totally understand why my family would have a problem with me doing my own thing, maybe because I never have, in relation to the minimal autonomy she had for more than 13 years while under a conservatorship that gave her father, Jamie Spears, control over aspects of her life, including her finances and medical decisions. Spears ended the recording by discussing how her religious beliefs have been impacted by her experience of her conservatorship, saying, God would not have allowed that to happen to me if God existed. I don't believe in God anymore because of the way my children and my family have treated me. There is nothing to believe in anymore. I'm an atheist, y'all, she said. Gulf Arab states have demanded that Netflix should remove all content deemed to violate Islamic and societal values and principles, Saudi media report. Recent material, including that made for children, contravened regulations. Saudi and Gulf Cooperation Council media watchdogs warned in a statement. Saudi State TV showed blurred clips from the animated show Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous, in which 2 teenage girls confess they love each other and kiss. See this video.
ادفع مبلغا ماليا للاشتراك في نتفليكس، وفي المقابل يرى طفلك مثل هذه المشاهد المخلة بالأدب. نعم، لقطات تدعو إلى الانحلال والشذوذ بين الأطفال يمررها نتفليكس في أفلام مختلفة مخصصة للأطفال تحت غطاء سينمائي.
A man described as a born-again Christian has been jailed for 22 years for sexually abusing children over a 13-year period in his wife's child-minding premises. William Patterson, 69, has also been placed on the sex offenders register for an indefinite period. The sentence passed on Patterson by Judge Philip Babington at Coleraine Crown Court is one of the longest jail terms ever imposed on a convicted paedophile in Northern Ireland. Police welcomed the sentencing and praised his victims for speaking out. Patterson was convicted of 84 charges of sexually abusing 19 preschool and primary school boys and girls, the youngest aged 3. The offences took place starting September 2005 for the next 13 years. A secondary school teacher who was jailed after he ignored a court order will remain in prison for at least another week after refusing to give an undertaking that he would obey the injunction. The order prevents Enoch Burke from attending or attempting to teach at the school where he works, but the court heard that after it was put in place, Mr. Burke continued to go to the school. A further injunction has been granted. Mr. Burke faced legal proceedings after a disciplinary process was launched against him by Wilson's Hospital School in County Westmeath for objecting to addressing a student who is transitioning gender with a new name and using the they pronoun. Mr. Burke was suspended with pay pending the outcome of the process, but the court was told he turned up at the school for his timetabled hours. He told the court he had spent the last 2 nights in Mountjoy prison, which was a new experience for him. He said he had had much time to consider his actions and behavior that led him to that place. Mr. Burke added he didn't find any instances of misconduct, but only actions worthy of commendation. He said he would never leave Mountjoy prison if, in doing so, he must violate his conscience and his religious beliefs and deny his God. Everyone thinks that churches are going to close, said Olson, the longtime pastor of Grace Evangelical Covenant Church on Chicago's North Side, but nobody thinks it is going to be their church. A 2021 study from Lifeway Research, based on data from 36 denominations, found that 4,500 churches closed in 2019, while only 3,000 were started. 20 years ago, the average congregation in the United States had 137 people, according to the Faith Communities Today study. Today, that number is 65. When churches get that small, there are just enough people to keep things going, to lead worship, to teach Sunday school, to greet, to volunteer at ministries like the food pantry, but little margin. During the final service, Olson reminded worshippers of all they had to be grateful for and told them that God was not done with them. No one wants to close a church, she said, but closing, even though it was hard, was the right thing. The death of a church is not the end of the story, she assured the congregation. The reality is that we cannot experience resurrection, friends, without first having the courage and the guts to face death. Since his dramatic appearance in a Cornish town centre, Earth Goddess, the tallest ceramic sculpture in the UK and possibly the world, has provoked its fair share of controversy, with unkind critics condemning it as a gaudy piece of junk more suited to the land of the Teletubbies. The row has taken a religious twist after a group of church leaders wrote to St Austell Town Council claiming that it was offensive to God and calling for the brightly coloured 11.5 metre tall piece to be rebranded or removed. The artist, Sandy Brown, told The Guardian on Friday she felt saddened and disappointed at the reaction, explaining that her work was intended to celebrate Mother Earth rather than having any religious message, while a leading town councillor suggested the church leaders were acting in a medieval manner. Regarded by fans as Southwest England's answer to the Angel of the North, it is the striking appearance of the sculpture, which is as high as 2 double-decker buses, one on top of the other, that has attracted the ire of some townsfolk. A letter signed by 7 Christian leaders in the area expressed concern that a statue of an earth goddess risked dividing the town and was offensive to God. It said, "The choice to erect a statue of an earth goddess means that, as the leaders of the town, you are actively, though likely unknowingly, choosing to reject God and instead to bring the town under the spiritual influence of an earth goddess." Richard Pears, a town councillor who was mayor when the plans for the sculpture were coming to fruition, said he was surprised by the letter. Probably not since the Reformation has a group of churches written to a local authority demanding the destruction of public art on the grounds that it offends the Almighty. The artist said the sculpture was meant to celebrate the area's strong links to the China clay trade and to represent a love of Mother Earth. She pointed out that there were initially complaints that the Angel of the North was blasphemous. But if there was an attempt to move that now, there would be an outcry. This week's Free Thought Hour features lithium battery researcher and intelligent design nerd Alasdair Crawfish. You can join in by texting your comments and questions. It's live and it's free. Don't forget to watch Global Atheist News Review, our spin-off show, where a panel of opinionated people get a chance to express their views on this very news. The GAN team will be back with our weekly news report next week. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, and set the notifications. This has been Global Atheist News. Thank you for watching.